All right, let's dive into the story of King Absalom. Now, this was a powerful ruler from the east, and his entire life, and his kingdom, mind you, was completely unraveled by just one single, terrifying dream.
Okay, so picture this. You wake up, your body just feels weak, your heart is pounding out of your chest. That's exactly where King Absalom was one morning. And his first thought? It was just a dream. But man, it felt so real. And that feeling, that sense of dread, it just stuck with him all day long. A cold premonition he just couldn't shake.
So, you're probably wondering, what did the king actually see in this terrifying vision? Let's break down the omen that really kicked off his downfall.
Well, in his dream, pretty much everything he held dear was just gone, stripped away. He watched himself get seriously ill, his body just weakening and failing him until eventually he died. And if that wasn't bad enough, his death triggered the complete collapse of the entire kingdom he'd spent his life building. I mean, for a powerful king, can you imagine? This was the ultimate nightmare of failure and loss.
So as you can imagine, he was completely panicked, desperate for answers. He does what any ruler in that situation would do, right? He immediately calls for the wise men of his kingdom. He needed someone, anyone, to tell him what this terrifying vision meant. The first person to show up was the oldest, most respected soothsayer in the entire land. But the king, he was in no mood for formalities. He was restless, agitated, and he just demanded an immediate explanation. What does my dream mean? Explain its meaning to me. You can literally feel the fear just radiating from that command. But here's where it gets really interesting. It's the moment before he even says anything. The old soothsayer just looks at the king, and his face isn't mysterious or anything like that. It's just full of this deep, profound sadness. You know, even without a single word, the king knew this was not going to be good news. And then he drops the bomb. The sage explains that the dream was a warning. But get this, it wasn't about some enemy attack or some outside force. No. The prophecy was that the king himself would fall ill simply from neglecting his own health. And that neglect, it could very well be what kills him.
So, the warning has been delivered. But the real turning point in this story, the crucial part, isn't the prophecy itself. It's all about how the king reacted to it. He got angry. I mean, not just annoyed, furiously angry. He didn't ask any follow-up questions, didn't ask for advice, didn't even stop to think about the warning. His immediate reaction was just pure rage. He couldn't handle the message, so he decided to, shoot the messenger.
So what did he do? First, he flat out accuses the old sage of being completely wrong. Then, without even blinking, he orders his soldiers to haul the guy off to prison. But deep down, that fear was still nagging at him, right? So he demands a second opinion. And this time, he calls for the absolute best, most skilled soothsayer in the whole kingdom. So the most reputable wise man in the kingdom shows up. He listens patiently to the king's dream and, you guessed it, he delivers the exact same unwelcome news. He totally confirmed the first warning, saying, yep, the king's life would be cut short because he'd neglect his health right up to the point of death. And the king's response to this expert confirmation? He threw him in prison too. I mean, the pattern was set right then and there. King Absalom basically decided that any news he didn't like was false, and anyone who delivered it was getting locked up, period. And this incredible denial, well, it kicked off a disastrous downward spiral. And not just for the king's health, but for his entire kingdom. You can actually trace his downfall step by step. First, the king became obsessed with the dream. It's all he could think about, 24/7. That obsession led straight to neglect. He just stopped eating, stopped sleeping. Then came the isolation. He wouldn't talk to anyone, wouldn't even leave his room. With every single one of these steps, he was actively trashing his own health, and at the same time, completely ignoring his duties as king. And what happens when there's no one in charge? Well, the kingdom fell into total disarray, and fast. The people, with zero guidance from their king, just started doing whatever they wanted. Order completely broke down. Chaos started to spread. And just like that, the second part of his dream, the part where he loses his kingdom, was starting to come true. And the crazy part, it was being fueled by his own actions. This whole path of self-destruction, it brings us to the final, tragic, and honestly deeply ironic ending to King Absalom's story.
Because he'd stopped eating, stopped sleeping, stopped caring for himself in any way, the king's body just gave out. It weakened.
He fell gravely ill, and, in the end, he died. The very thing he was warned about, the exact outcome he was terrified of, was brought on by his own fear. Wow.
And this is the whole point, right here. King Absalom's story is a textbook example of what psychologists call a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's this wild idea that a belief or an expectation, in his case, the belief that he would die from neglecting his health, actually influences your behavior in a way that makes the thing come true.
And get this, after he died, the kingdom's own physicians confirmed it. They didn't blame it on some ancient curse or any kind of supernatural force. Nope, their diagnosis was crystal clear. King Absalom was weakened by his obsession. He neglected his health, and that is why he died. He literally brought the prophecy to life all by himself.
I mean, when you really break it down, the story is incredibly simple. The prophecy wasn't some complex, mysterious riddle. It was a straight-up statement of cause and effect. You will get sick from not taking care of yourself. And what was the reality? He got sick from not taking care of himself. It's like he walked, step by painstaking step, into the very future he was trying to run away from.
You know, the story of King Absalom might be an ancient tale, but its lesson is absolutely timeless. And it leaves all of us with a really powerful question to think about in our own lives. How often do we, driven by our own anxieties, our own fears, end up building the exact future we're trying so desperately to avoid?